Have you ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or invisible, yet deep down wondered if your life still mattered? Esther was once ignored, powerless, and unseen. But when the moment came, she discovered she had been chosen for something far greater than she ever imagined. Esther's story begins in a powerful kingdom called Persia, ruled by King Xerxes. This was a world of wealth, beauty, and authority, but also a world where women had very little voice. One day, the king removed his queen, and suddenly the palace was filled with young women brought from all over the kingdom. They were gathered not because of who they were on the inside, but because of how they looked on the outside. Among them was a young Jewish girl named Esther. Esther was an orphan. She had lost her parents and was being raised by her older cousin, Mordecai. She didn't come from a wealthy family. She didn't have power or influence. In fact, she belonged to a people who were often ignored and looked down on. Most people would never have noticed her. But Esther was taken into the palace anyway. She kept her background quiet, just as Mordecai advised her. Day after day, she lived among strangers, surrounded by uncertainty, waiting without knowing what her future would hold. And then something unexpected happened. Out of all the women in the palace, the king noticed Esther. He chose her. And just like that, the orphaned girl no one expected became queen. It looked like a fairy tale, but the story was only beginning. Not long after Esther became queen, a powerful official named Haman rose to influence. He was proud, angry, and hungry for control. When Mordecai refused to bow to him, Haman didn't just get offended, he became furious. And instead of taking revenge on one man, Haman planned something far worse. He decided to destroy all the Jewish people. Using lies and manipulation, Haman convinced the king to sign a law that would allow the Jews to be wiped out. Once the law was sealed, it could not be undone. Men, women, children, every one of them marked for death. Mordecai was devastated. He mourned openly and sent word to Esther, urging her to speak to the king. But Esther was afraid. Approaching the king without being invited was dangerous. People could be executed for it. Even the queen was not exempt. Esther hadn't been called to the king in weeks. Speaking up could cost her life. She sent word back explaining the risk. Mordecai's reply changed everything. He reminded her that silence would not save her. And then he spoke words that would echo through history. He said that perhaps Esther had become queen for such a time as this. In that moment, Esther understood something powerful. Her position was not an accident. Her past rejection, her silence, her waiting, it all led to this moment. Esther asked her people to fast and pray. Then she made a brave decision. She would go to the king, even if it meant risking her life. When Esther entered the king's presence, the room held its breath. But instead of anger, the king showed her favor. He welcomed her and asked what she wanted. With wisdom and patience, Esther did not reveal everything at once. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet. Then she invited them again. And at the right moment, with courage and clarity, Esther spoke the truth. She revealed Haman's plan. She revealed her own identity as a Jew. And she pleaded for the lives of her people. The king was shocked and furious. At Haman, justice came swiftly. Haman's plan collapsed, and the very fate he intended for others fell upon him instead. The Jewish people were saved. What had been meant for destruction turned into deliverance. Esther's courage changed the course of history. She did not start as a warrior. She was not loud or powerful in the beginning. She was quiet, overlooked, and afraid. But when the moment came, she chose courage over comfort and faith over fear. Esther's story reminds us that being chosen doesn't always look impressive at first. Sometimes it looks like waiting. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it feels like being ignored. But purpose often hides in places we least expect. If you've ever felt rejected, Esther's story tells you that rejection does not cancel destiny. If you've ever felt ignored, her story reminds you that God still sees you. And if you've ever felt afraid to speak up, Esther shows us that courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means moving forward despite it. You may not wear a crown. You may not stand in a palace. But just like Esther, your life may be positioned for a moment that matters more than you realize. You were not forgotten. You were not overlooked. You were chosen. And your moment may be closer than you think.